Good afternoon. Welcome to another Pursuit 365 Real Estate and Finance Fridays podcast with yours truly, Shelly Smee. Today, I am so excited because I'm joined on the call with not only a former colleague, but someone who I trusted with the year of my life. It was a huge year of transition. Deborah transitioned herself a number of years ago from being an award-winning realtor to being an amazing coach for high-performing women, but some men as well. We'll let the guys in once
Yeah.
in a while.
Yeah.
um, People in finance and real estate, generally in those spheres. And I just have to say, I'm so excited she's here today because we're going to talk about supporting people through change.
Mhm.
And, it doesn't matter what industry you're in or what kind of change is happening, it's just inevitable. And especially I've found from the context of my 28 years in real estate, changing homes is one of those huge life events
Mhm.
that, the transactional part of it is one thing, but the actually physically moving you and all of your belongings and your family and everything to a whole entire new space, no matter how exciting it is, there's also a lot of change. It is like the epitome of change. You're changing your whole life living area to somewhere else. So welcome, Deb.
Thank you. So glad to be here. It's always fun to play with you. Yeah. Yeah. And this is a really big topic.
It's a
And
huge
we've talked
topic.
about it a lot. And I'm really excited to dive in with you today because even as you said, like you're changing everything. And when I think about the changing homes, and I used to tell my clients this when I was a realtor, there's a book called The Life of Pi. Have you read it? Okay.
Yes, many times.
There's a part at the beginning of the book that's actually it's part of the fiction, but it's a prologue, and people will skip over it because they think it's not part of the fiction. But in the story, he talks about how the animals, like there's a lot of people who are anti-zoo, and they think, well, it's so bad for the animals because they're there. And he said, well, actually, in some ways, it's better for them because then they have stability and certainty. They don't have to like scramble for food and all of that. And I mean, you could argue the other side, but the point is that the animals have anxiety when they change location. So he takes all these animals, they go on this big ship and they're freaking out, right? And because they're leaving their den, they're leaving their what they're familiar with, and there's a lot of anxiety. And he compares that to people. When we change our environments, a part of our brain, the amygdala, the right there at the back, the lizard brain, the survival brain, goes on high alert and says, "What are you doing? We're not dead yet, so we should probably just stay right where we are." And so, knowing as a real estate professional that your clients are having that experience of their survival brain kicking in and they're starting to have this like unnamed anxiety. And even if you're aware of it, like a few weeks ago, I've been thinking about moving myself and kind of feeling into it. And I found myself kind of freaking out. And I'm like,
Yeah,
I
we were
know exactly
talking
what's
about
happening.
that in the summer
Hmm.
when
Yeah.
I
And
was over, and it's like it doesn't matter how nice your place is. Sometimes place is attached to things that you feel like you've outgrown, or that, I mean, literally, when people have an extra child out of the blue, or it's even
exactly.
planned, or
And
all of a
even
sudden
then,
the kids are, finished university even, and that big lumbering home is no longer the right
mhm,
fit for the lifestyle. It doesn't change the fact that it's going to be, actually, I think realtors should do it to themselves every 5 or 10
right?
years, just so you like remember how much of
Yeah.
a huge amount of energy goes into managing not just the logistics but the
Mhm.
emotional landscape
Mhm.
of place.
Yeah. And I remember one of my clients, an elderly man, because they were downsizing, and he was feeling so anxious. And he actually was judging himself for having that anxiety. He goes, "Oh, I'm being so silly. I shouldn't be feeling this way." I'm like, this is huge, especially as when you're dealing with elderly clients, because you're having these emotions. But as we age, we become more physically vulnerable. So our fears and our tolerance for the survival brain kicking in and letting us know we're in danger diminishes significantly. So be aware if you're dealing with aging people moving. This is why it's so hard to get elderly people to move, even though it's the best thing for them, because they're just physically less. There's aware. I mean, in the wilderness, when the wildebeests are running away from the lions, it's the weak and the young that get picked off, right?
Yeah.
Because they're the weakest. So we have to be aware that that's what's happening to our clients. No matter what stage they're at in their life, there's this big, massive change. And then there's significant impact depending on what's happening. My daughter and son-in-law moved earlier this summer with a baby, a 1-month-old baby. Wasn't the best idea. It was very stressful for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And, so there's that, because you also are in a weakened state because you're now taking care of a child. You can't just take care of yourself, right? So all those factors, you have to be aware as a real estate professional. There's a whole context going on here that is rooted in our survival brain igniting.
So, when let's take you necessarily out of the general coaching sphere and just into the sort of, for instance, putting yourself in the place of, oh, what if I find that place and I decide to move? What are some strategies that you would encourage people to use in managing their change?
Yeah. Okay. Awesome question, Shelly. And there's a couple of points that I would say to managing change. One is to slow down and be really clear on what it is you desire. We tend to, some people, not everybody, will react really quickly. My daughter takes after me and she was just like, I want to move. I'm like, are you sure it's a good idea? You're like 2 weeks away from having a baby. Should we actually be doing this right now? And there was a lot of anxiety in her pregnancy, and the baby was coming early. They knew that because she'd had an issue. And so really looking back, she was trying to control something and she thought moving was a thing she could control. So, right. Yeah. I used to be like that. Meditation helps. So slowing down the process and really ask yourself, why am I doing this? What is it going to give me? Because, you got to let your kids make their own mistakes. And I said what I could say. I mean, I couldn't stop her, right? She's a determined young woman and if she wants something, she's going to make it happen.
Makes sense.
Kind of like her mom, right?
Yeah.
And so,
I wonder where she got that from.
right. And I said the things to her, like, are you sure about this? And like, you got to let people make their own mistakes sometimes. And so I would never say to recommend to a realtor, like, to tell people, like, are you sure about this? But I think you should, like, you can talk them out of it, but you can still say, are you sure about this? Because you want them to be sure, because if things go sideways, they're going to blame you. So, right. But
We are the easiest scapegoat on many, many fronts, both legally and
emotionally.
technically and emotionally.
Yeah. So
Because
slow things
that's
down.
actually really part of our role.
Yeah.
It's, you want to make a lifestyle change, or even with first-time buyers.
Yes. My first coach when I was a realtor told me that my job as a realtor was to slow things down. And I teach that to my own clients, like, slow it down. Things have to happen quickly, like quick decisions, but you have to be the one who holds the place to slow it down. Now, you can do that for yourself as well. And part of that is just like slowing down, having a trusted advisor, ideally the right realtor for you, but also having other people who can be your sounding board, who will ask you. Like, having somebody in your life will ask you, are you sure about that? Like the time I wanted to paint my living room lime green because I saw it in a magazine and it looked fantastic, but it would have looked horrible in my house. I was just finishing my master's degree and I was just feeling like restless, and I had this new house we'd moved into and I just didn't know what to do with it. And I found this really gorgeous picture, like lime green walls and white and navy decor, and I thought I could do that. Totally didn't work the space. And my sister said to me, are you sure you want to do that? Maybe you should wait till you finish your thesis. And she still brings that up. Right?
You are procrastinating.
Yep, exactly. And I was reacting too, right? So to have somebody in your life who will slow you down, that's really important. The other thing, and just in terms of it generally, I mean, we're all going to go through stressful experiences, change is always stressful, even if it's good. Because our body and our brains react to it being different, of like being on alert. So there are techniques you can use. Some of my favorites are EFT tapping. I have some of
Mhm.
those videos on my YouTube channel. The or breath work. Anything that's going to calm your nervous system. Because anxiety is literally your body going into stress response, getting ready to fight or flight, or freeze or fawn, because sometimes it's freeze, and that's not useful. But we do some of us will freeze in a stress response. So if you're dealing with a client who can't make a decision, they're probably in a freeze response. But you can manage that and regulate your own nervous system with breath work, with breathing, with TFT tapping, any kind of psychosensory technique where you're getting yourself back into your body. Mindfulness is a misnomer, because mindfulness is really about dropping into your body and being aware that you're here right now and you're safe. That's one of my favorite sayings. Like, if you're
Yeah,
feeling anxious, put your hand on your chest, take a deep breath, and say to yourself, I'm here, I'm safe, everything's always working out for me. And so those kind of affirmations of letting yourself know, like, if something goes sideways, I'll be there in the future to take care of it. And I'm really resourceful. So just reminding yourself of those things. And then four square breathing is awesome, where you're just like, breathe in for 4, hold for 4, breathe out for 4, hold for 4, and do that again. You do that, like,
yeah,
half a dozen, 8 times, and it's going to completely reset your nervous system. And if you're going through a move or any kind of career change or life change, doing that regular is going to help you. That's the most valuable technique we have. And guess what? You can do it anywhere, anytime, and nobody would even know. You're just breathing.
just breathing. Just
Just
keep
breathing.
breathing.
Just keep breathing. Yeah.
That is important to remember in any situation.
Mhm.
I would be kind of funny to be in the middle of a showing and seeing people getting a little anxious and just in the living room. This is a living room. I don't have to tell you it's a living room, but it can be a breathing room.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just slow down. Now, I think one of the points that I think that you made that's actually kind of interesting in our industry that I find somewhat frustrating, but it's kind of it is the way it is because people don't acknowledge it, and it hasn't really changed, but the market tends to change it, is the responsiveness kind of trap, I guess you could call it, of like we are expected to be hyper responsive,
Yeah.
and quite often the speed when the market gets really hot, what we're just seeing, or what we call a hot market, and it's kind of an expectation that's crept in over the last 10 or 15 years that a transaction has to happen quickly or there's something wrong,
Mm.
or there's something, what's wrong with this house? It's been on the market 3 weeks and it hasn't sold, or, this whole focus on, of course, we want to be efficient and meet expectations and deliver what we're supposed to deliver. But I would really like, how there's been the slow food movement. I
Mm-hmm.
know there'd be maybe a little bit of kickback from people of like the slow real estate movement. It's like making the right choice for
Mm-hmm.
um, the client, making the right choice, and us helping to guide them to that choice without necessarily the huge pressure of you got to decide now or this one disappears, or
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the negativity towards how transactional people sometimes get left feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Those are things that kind of bother me, and it's one of those things that I thought, this will be, through the lens of change in managing change, the rate at which everything else in the world, I nearly knocked my water over there, the rate at everything else is changing in the world all around us, from technology to fashion to
Yeah.
whatever. The only thing we can really control is ourselves and
Yes.
our emotional, the way we react and the way we
Mm-hmm.
deal with the world. But that's one thing I I get a little stumped and I get a little
Mm,
frustrated when I think about the rate and the pace of a transaction is often really
yeah.
out of our control.
Well,
When we're competing, when it's like a
yeah.
market, but
Mm,
then when the market adjusts to what I like to see as really more a balanced market, a more
yeah.
sane market,
Mhm.
because we were in such a whirlwind market for so long, there's now this conception that if
Yep.
something doesn't happen right away, that there must be something wrong with the, oh, did it have a crappy inspection or whatever?
Yeah.
It's 3-4 weeks
Yeah.
on market. It's a disaster. It's like,
Mhm.
no, people,
Yeah.
it's not a disaster. It's 25 years ago, you wanted your place on the market a good 25 days because you had a chance to meet the neighbors, you had a chance to market your listing, you had a chance, or if you were working with a buyer, you had a chance to see a lot of inventory
Mhm.
before you made a
Yeah.
decision. Chances were that home was still available the following Friday if the in laws were in and you wanted to go see it again. So, the rapid pace of the
Yeah.
transactional nature of our business, I'm actually happy when
Yeah.
we're in a more balanced market because I think it's not just about listing to sales
Yeah.
ratios, it's about being able to be more present, to be more
Mhm.
uh, to slow it down a bit, to
Yeah.
take more time in really being able to consider all the choices and to actually have those choices still available to consider a week later. It's like,
Mhm.
what? It's
Yeah.
still up? Yeah, it is. And
Yeah.
it's great because it means people have to also be better
Mhm.
negotiators.
Exactly. And see that whole speed of things adds a whole new level of stress to clients, whether they're buying or selling. It's a whole new level of stress because it happens so fast, and
Hmm.
there's no time to adjust as a seller, and there's no time to like really prepare as a buyer usually. And my son-in-law made a point. The first home that they bought, it's a townhouse. It was 2017, I think, and they were in competition. And he said, "Wow," he's like, I spend more time buying a pair of pants than I spent looking at this home. And that's a problem. Unfortunately, it's not a problem we can necessarily solve because of the supply and demand.
Oh, come on. You
But
and me are going
but
to
hold on.
solve it here
We're gonna
today.
solve
No,
it. This is
I
gonna be
know.
solved. Well, here it comes back to what I said about slowing things down. Because as a sales professional, you have the responsibility, I believe, to acquire the skills for understanding people's emotions, for guiding them with leadership and your own leadership skills, your communication skills. When you had developed those skills, you can slow things down. So even if they're happening quickly, there's a feeling of spaciousness. So I think
Hmm.
about Sherlock Holmes has his mind castle, right? He goes into his mind castle. There's this great episode with Benedict Cumberbatch as Sherlock Holmes, and he gets shot, and the whole episode is him, the bullet coming towards him being shot and him falling to the ground, and that's it. But the whole time he's in his mind castle and he's imagining what's going to happen and what he needs to do in order to so he can fall in the right way so he doesn't bleed out before help comes because someone's on his way. So the whole hour-long episode is him slowing down that moment of being shot and falling by really thinking through what's going to happen. Okay, so it's just like that interesting concept. And I think that if we think that way, we have this responsibility and this ability to slow things down for people by going back to calming your nervous system as the professional. You keep your nervous system calm, you can calm the people around you. Being the calmest, most emotionally intelligent, most positively intelligent person in the room will bring down the anxiety of other people. So it's doubly important. It's so much more transactional because we don't have space and time. So this is why it's even more important to have the emotional skills, the emotional intelligence and positive intelligence to do it. And those are skills that can be acquired
Hmm.
with practice.
Hmm.
And most people don't bother. They don't think, "Oh, I just need to learn how to write a contract." It's like it's so much more than that.
Well, one of the things that I feel very grateful for over my career is I've walked away from so many deals. I've walked away, or not necessarily walked away like, hey, we're done. No, it's like, you know what? we don't have to make an offer on this if you don't truly love it. Oh, but I need a place. Well, like there's been many times, well, maybe say a handful of times that I've kind of talked people out of it because I just knew it
Mhm.
just wasn't the right thing. There were too many obstacles. There was it's
Yeah.
too hard. There
And
was no
too
flow.
many compromises. And yeah,
Well,
you
and
know.
there was no flow. It was
Mhm.
just like, and or I realized that I was not the right fit for
Ah.
that person.
Can I go back to
And
what you
that
said?
person
Yeah.
was they were putting roadblocks up, but it's like
Mhm.
you realize that, you know what, I can't really help this person
Right.
because A, maybe it's a personality thing, but B,
Yeah.
it's just not right. It's
Yeah.
too hard.
Let's go back to what you said about there being no flow. Like, it's great insight for clients and agents alike. If there's obstacles, I've always found that anytime I've gone to make a move or sell a house, and then I had this like gut feeling that this is not right, and like, don't override that. Your intuition is your gut has the same cells as your brain because it is your second brain,
Mhm.
and your gut is saying to you, "This is hard. This doesn't feel like flow. It's like just too difficult." Listen to that. Listen as a client, as a seller or a buyer, you have to listen to that. Also, as agents, you need to listen to it too, but you have to listen to yourself. Like, this is really complicated, and then ask them those questions. This is feeling really hard, and labeling. This is feeling really like sticky and just harder than it needs to be. Is there something I don't know something you haven't told me that you think I need to know? Or is there somebody else, something else you want to look at? Should we go back to the drawing board and like bring people back and let them know real estate transactions are never comfortable? I said to one of my clients recently, he added his logo, making
Yeah.
your real estate journey comfortable. I'm like, ugh, don't ever say that. It will never be comfortable. So if it's not comfortable and you promise comfort, the client is going to go, I'm not comfortable. And they're going to think, A, I'm making a mistake, or B, you screwed up.
Yeah.
So you have to let people know it's never comfortable, and it can be smooth and easeful as well.
Well, I've gone too far in the other direction. I call it the real estate roller coaster. And I
Yeah.
prep people at the beginning. I said, we're kind of getting on a ride right now. And
Mhm.
especially, a couple years ago or during COVID, I mean, that was insane. But, we're kind of getting on this ride. And at the end of the ride, you're going to be living in a new home. But in between, we have some peaks. We're going to have some peaks. We're going to have some valleys. There'll be moments where you just want it to stop and you
Yeah.
want to get off, and you may even barf. And I just try and put some
Right.
levity in there, right?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, who walks to a lawyer's office with a check for $750,000 in their hand or something, right? Like, people have never been that's why I love working with first time buyers as well. It's like it's your job to educate about what the whole process is going to be like, not
Mhm.
just, oh, sign here please.
Yeah.
And I think that's what made me a great managing broker when
Mhm.
I was doing that
Yes.
role, and why I really love teaching is it is our job to educate
Yeah.
our clients, not just on the technical aspects,
Yeah.
but on, I think, on,
Emotional.
you know what, you're going to be kind of having these feels. These
Yeah.
feels are going to be normal. And,
And it's always,
kind of mama bearing them a bit.
yeah.
But at the same time, it's like, I only work with people who want to work with me.
Yeah.
Are we
Well,
ready to go to work?
and
Because getting agreement on, like, you're
yeah.
going to be
Mhm.
having this experience
Yeah.
together.
Yes. Well, and
Are
there's
we?
the thing, right? Is that when you let them know that it's going to be a ride, then what happens doesn't seem as bad because we always anticipate things are going to be worse than they actually are. When we're faced with the unknown, our brain goes into, again, that amygdala part of our brain, the survival brain goes, this is going to be bad, especially when we tell them. And so you get in there like, oh, this isn't so bad. So it's really helpful to tell people what to expect, because that's another way to mitigate the stress of change, is to know what to expect. So you see it all the time, like, the dentist or the doctor, they'll tell you, okay, this is what's going to happen next, or this is what's going to happen next. And
If you
that's,
have a good dentist that just doesn't come
yes,
at you with that gigantic perk,
right?
Jesus. Actually, I
Your
went,
story?
yeah, yeah, no, I've finally gotten over my extreme dental paranoia.
Mm,
But I found a dentist who he's much younger than the other dentist I have, and he's got the gel stuff, and he like puts
mm,
the disgusting tasting gel stuff on your gums so the needle
okay.
doesn't hurt so much.
So
But
Shelly, what's the
nobody did
equivalent of
that before.
gel? But what's the equivalent of the gel as a realtor? Like, what would you say your equivalent of the gel for numbing the pain? What would you say is the equivalent of what you can
Information,
give them? Yeah.
information, and preparation,
Mm,
and it's and also trying to keep it fun. Like
mhm.
I've had a lot of my clients say to me, we actually had a lot of fun today. And it's like, yeah, this isn't all terrifying. It's not like going to the
Yeah.
spooky house.
Mhm.
And I really like to find out from people their feedback, and being able to give that feedback to the other agent as well, which is one of my pet peeves is when you try and get feedback from another agent and they're like, well, I don't know. I'm like, are
Mm.
you kidding me? You didn't even talk to your
Yeah.
client about what, and I'm just like,
Yeah, well, and this is where it comes down to skill set. So then those clients don't have as positive an experience because you have an agent who hasn't developed the skills of communication and supporting their clients and really being a professional. And I'm going to say they're probably one of those agents who's really struggling financially, right? The average realtor sells 6 homes a year. And that is an average. That means there's a whole bunch of realtors who are not selling 6, and even 6 is not enough to make a living in this city. And and they're the ones who don't have the skills, and so if you don't have the skills to support your clients to the change, it's kind of like the dentist that just comes at you because nobody taught them to prepare their client, because there's going to be a psychological impact. It's not just their mouth they're working on, they're also responsible for the reaction and the stress it's causing, right? And so unfortunately, I think that's one of the problems, is that when you're going through a real estate transaction, don't pick your agent because they're your uncle's brother's best friend's sisters in law, right? Like, pick your agent because they're the right person that you feel safe with, that they clearly have a sense of leadership about them that makes you feel safe and that you can trust them. Not just they're nice. It's not good enough to have a nice agent. There's lots of nice agents out there. That doesn't mean they're the best person for the job. So we
mm.
wanted to checking, is it like, are they nice? They're friendly, you kind of jive with them, but do you feel safe? Like, would you let them babysit your kids? Would you, would you let
Would you leave
them,
your dog with them for the week?
yeah, exactly. Would
You
you
know
let
what's
them
really
make the
funny?
financial decisions for, like, this is your money? Are you going to
Yeah.
let them help you make the decision based on the fact that they're nice? It's like, I'm going to go to a hairstylist because she's nice, even though she cuts my hair like crap. Like, no. So why would you do the same with a realtor? Like, you've got to interview people, find the person who's going to make you feel the safest and support you the most in the process.
Well, and that's another thing that in our industry we have so much selection, and I always joke with people that there's at least 10 realtors that you probably know, even just in your social sphere, let alone all the different people that could get referred to you.
Yep.
And I know there's been some, like, we're not, everybody isn't for everybody.
Yep.
I've gone to interviews and know right off the bat that I'm not going to probably work with that person because we just didn't click
Yep.
on a certain level, and that's
Mhm.
okay. It used to really
Mhm.
bother me because I'm kind of a hyper competitive person, but
Yes. Especially where you don't take
once
it
I
personally, right?
began to realize that I'm not for everybody,
Mhm.
everybody's not for me, and you find
Exactly.
the right people find you, and the right
Mm.
people want to work with you. But I always found that interesting when I was teaching the Oakwyn University to the brand new agents, is that there is a lot of self-esteem and
Yeah.
self-growth involved in becoming a very effective advisor.
Yeah.
And I don't like to say salesperson because it gets it it
Mm.
gets, if it's not done with finesse,
Yeah.
it, or sounding salesy, but,
Mhm.
impressing upon people that in this industry or any industry where you're going to be guiding people through a financial transaction,
Mhm.
you need to be able to have trust.
Yeah.
You need to know that you trust your clients to heed your advice,
Mhm.
giving them all the options, but
Mhm.
also yourself personally, you need to bring your A game to the
Yeah.
table, and
Mm.
that includes being okay with getting rejection sometimes.
Yeah, and really learning to, again, regulating your nervous system as an entrepreneur is learning to take the no and not make it mean anything about you. It's like, we're just not a fit. I'm
Mhm.
chocolate and you like vanilla, or I'm a strawberry mousse and you like apple pie, right? It's like it's neutral. It's not about you. Now, are there things you can do to make yourself more attractive, aligned with these potential clients? Yes, yes. Develop your skills. It's not enough that you got licensed
Mm.
and did post
Very
licensing,
tip of the iceberg.
right? It's
It's the
like, and
tippy, tippy, tippy. Then
yeah,
and
people think,
so
oh,
many
good, I'm
newer
gonna make,
agents are like, they're like shell shocked in the first 6 months
yeah,
because they had no idea
that
that,
they were gonna have to work at this. Yeah.
well, not only work at it, but no, you're running a business.
Yes,
This is
that's
a
the thing.
business. That's why they call it a personal real estate corporation.
Yeah.
And I mean,
And
that's an incorporation, and some people don't do that right away,
mhm,
but it's, you're in charge of a business. This is a business. We're not doing this for, you know,
yeah.
volunteer week.
Yeah.
This is a business,
Yeah.
and
And you can't
in
run a business
order
without
to
the
make
right
a
employees.
living, to
You
make a
can't, yeah.
living and actually find financial fulfillment and be able to pay your own rent or mortgage
Yeah.
and provide for your family or feed your dog or whatever the case may be, it's okay to be successful and
Yes.
to have a success mindset and
Mhm.
to
Well, it's
do
not
it
even
in a
okay, it's necessary. It's
it's
absolutely
necessary.
necessary,
It's absolutely necessary. So I
and
love the way that you have called your business, your coaching business, Aligned and Prosperous.
mm,
No, it
I love
wasn't
it too.
always called that. What was your sort of journey to get to that as your coaching business name?
Okay, I love, thank you. I love it too. Every time I say it, I'm so happy, and I've got the Aligned
Well, it's
Prosperous Academy, and
reaffirming, isn't it?
mhm,
Because we
and
all want to be aligned and prosperous.
yes, exactly. And it started off, my coaching business kind of evolved out of, I was a teacher for 15 years. I taught high school English, and then I went into coaching. I went into real estate, and um, because I'd had a car accident and I couldn't stay in teaching. I couldn't do the marketing. And so I went into real estate because my realtor said, hey, you should try this. You'd be good at it. She was right. I was great at it. And I got awards and I made a lot of money. And I'm a teacher. I really grieved leaving teaching, and there was no going back. And as much as I enjoyed real estate and parts of it, and I wasn't getting the satisfaction of teaching. And now you've listened to what I've shared today on this podcast episode. That's the stuff that excites me. I want to talk about your brain and how it's working. I want to talk about how that single word comfortable is the wrong thing to promise your clients. And most people don't know that. But I have a master's degree in rhetorical studies. I mean, I'm studying language and literature all the time, and I know that, and I can share that with you and help you make your career better, make your clients' experience better. So that's how I evolved into the coaching thing. And I wasn't even sure what it was going to look like. And I woke up one night and I'm thinking, I'm going to start a blog, and that'll help me just to like express what I've learned. I thought, I'm just going to keep doing real estate, but I'm going to create this blog where I teach people the things I've learned in the 6 years that I've been an entrepreneur. Because one thing I discovered as soon as I came into business, I'm like, oh, systems are sexy. And partly because as a teacher, what you do, lesson plans, unit plans, exams, all of that, it's all systems, right?
Right.
You're working towards something. And so I found business systems just fascinating. And so, of course, I set them up. And that's why I won Rookie of the Year my first year, because I had systems and I was going for it. And well, I also hired a coach. That was also helpful. But I woke up one night thinking, I'm going to do this blog, and it's going to help me figure out, like, I'm not satisfied. I need to teach. So I'm going to teach what I've learned. And I called it the Stellar Life Project because I was feeling like I need to create a different life for myself. And something wasn't quite aligned for me. And I'd come across the book, The Big Leap. And the question was, how much time are you spending in your zone of genius? And I'm like, oh, shoot, that's what's wrong with me. My zone of genius is teaching. And I'm not doing enough of it, because even if you're really busy, even my busiest year when I had 40 transactions, you're not talking to people every day, all day. And I love, like, I was coming from 15 years of talking to people all day, every day, being with people for a long period of time, watching them over a year, sometimes 2 years, transforming and gaining in confidence and becoming this other version of themselves. So working with real estate clients just didn't give me that because it was too short of a relationship. And even though it's really important, I thought I'll step aside and let somebody else do it. But it was the Stellar Life Project for a while.
Right.
And then I'm like, but nobody knows what that is but me. So, I mean, it sounds pretty good, right?
Well,
But
and
I'm like,
it had a really great play off your name, which I always
exactly.
love wordplay with,
Me
you know,
too.
a little bit of nod to whatever.
Yeah. And my real estate business was Stelling the City.
Yeah.
So, because Matthew told me, Matthew, our managing broker at McDonald Main Street, he's like, nobody's going to remember how to spell that. And it's so true. So anyways, it was Stellar Life Project for a while. And it's still, stellar is my word. Everybody knows that. I'm like, have a stellar day, do that, right? It's my thing. And then I've got a new coach a couple years ago, and I'm working with her, and I'm just like getting really clear, like, what is it I do? I know I'm helping people. I know I'm changing lives. And I'm following the model of the Big Leap, which is being aligned in your zone of genius, doing the things that are aligned with your values and aligned with your gifts and talents. And then I started seeing realtors are in trouble all the time financially. There's this feast or famine cycle because of how they're running their business, but also how they're managing their money and also their money mindset. So then I got certified as a money coach. So I could help them with that. I could help them with money mindset. I could help with the money sort of strategies and managing things. I'm not a financial advisor or accountant or anything, but I give some tools, as you know, to help follow your cash flow and make a cash flow plan, because it's a business. You need to do that. And out of all that kind of exploring over a couple of years, it was back at the end of last year when I was ready to incorporate, and I had come up with this idea for the Aligned Prosperous Academy. I was going to make this academy, and I'm like, am I going to do this? And really, the academy, which is now a program that's available for people to join, was originally created as a resource for my one-on-one and my small group clients. And
Right.
and then it was like, oh, this just makes sense. It was one of those things again, like it just made sense to call it Aligned and Prosperous. And it started from this other thing, my book title, because I've been working on a book, which I put on hold to get divorced, but it's, I'm coming back to it now. And the book title was like, From Possibility to Profit. So this evolution from Stellar Life Project to Possibility to Profit to Aligned and Prosperous. And it was super cool. Every time I see my bank account, this is Aligned and Prosperous Inc., and it's incorporated, and I have that as my official name. And it's just so incredibly satisfying because it's actually way more clear to everybody what I help with than Stellar
Right.
Life Project, right?
Right.
So yeah. So thank you for asking that story. It's a fun
Yeah,
one.
no, and I love that story because I think, you know, through the process of oh, I'm gonna sneeze. I hope I don't sneeze.
To this.
Okay. Through the process of evolving your career from one thing to another thing to where you are right now. I think, and one of the things that, I don't mind admitting this, one of the things that I found really helpful when I was working with you is understanding that just because I was good at something, and this was from the Big Leap, just because I was good at something and just because I was actually excellent at it did not necessarily automatically mean that it was in alignment
Yeah.
with where I actually should be, or not should, because we don't want
Where
to
you
should
want to
ourselves,
be.
where you
Yeah.
want to be. And that just because you have a certain skill set doesn't mean that you're locked
Mhm.
into that.
Yeah.
You
Well,
can
and how
always
you want to
move
feel.
and how
Comes
you
back.
want to feel.
It comes back
Yeah.
to what you
And
said before about when people are making moves and stuff. It's like, ask yourself, how do you want to feel? What are you
yes.
doing? Like, I was excellent at real estate. When I said I was leaving, people were like, what? Well, you're so good at it. Why would you leave? Because I'm way better at this. And it's so much more satisfying for me to do
Well,
the
I'm
thing
waking
that's
up
like,
in the morning and just knowing that, what you're going to do in the day puts a smile on your face and puts a smile on a lot of other people's faces,
thank you.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So I also wanted to just mention that if you had anything else that you think that you might be doing just as a hobby, let's say, just because I like to round these things out,
Mm.
what would you say a hobby is that either you would like to do or that you do that has nothing to do with your business
Mm-hmm.
or your day-to-day professional life?
Okay, so that's a tricky question for me because I'm like a recovering workaholic. I love my business so much. It's so creative for me that it's hard to like move away from it. And I'm always wanting to work on it. And I intentionally step away. I love dancing. And I had something came up with my knee earlier this year, and it's kind of put me on the sidelines from dance. And so my hobby right now is working with a kinesiologist and my physiotherapist and I think to get my legs strong. And you and I were at a concert last week
Yeah.
and I danced the whole time, so it's working. Right.
Yes,
I'm
that's
not ready
awesome.
to go to bachata and salsa again yet because it's a little bit
Yeah.
more strain on the knee than just kind of dancing at a concert. You kind of can sort of stop and slow down when you need to. Whereas when you're dancing in a like group setting with bachata, you can't just like stop because your knees, So I'm
Is
not
that
there
like
yet, but
Latin dance? I don't think
yeah,
I've ever heard
yeah.
of which it's
You
not
see, so
salsa.
bachata is what everybody thinks salsa is, and looks more like ballroom. So when you think
Oh,
about
okay.
bachata, like or salsa, everyone thinks it's like this kind of movement sideways, like
Yeah.
with the hips and stuff, right? That's actually bachata, and then
Oh, okay.
salsa is very contained, right? It's like forward
Right.
and back, and there's turns and spins and stuff, and you've got to be really careful to. Um, and it's been a lot. It's been, I'm a dancer. I was a dancer. I used to teach dance. I used to dance. And coming to learn a new style of dance, which is partner dancing, when I was a solo dancer or a group dancer, I never had partners. It's been a real stretch to my brain. And it always just makes me so happy too. So
Yeah.
I'm working to get back to dancing at the studio and learning more of salsa bachata. And I'm super happy that I've got my knee to a place where I can go to a concert and dance. And I can
Yeah.
dance and I can do the dinner dance time. Because when I make dinner, I put the music on and I'm dancing the whole time I'm having dinner. So, yeah. And then another thing I would say, I wouldn't call it a hobby, but it's something that I really devote my time to is seeing my grandchildren. I have a grandson who's almost 5 and a granddaughter who's 4 months. And I go to Langley on a road trip once a week because they're so much fun to spend time with.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So here we are. We're at 43 minutes, and I promised you we wouldn't take up a huge amount of time, but that we would have an amazing time talking about being aligned and prosperous
Thank you. And change and how to handle it.
and change.
And I
Um,
think that they tie together, right? Alignment, when you're aligned, that's when you know the change is right.
Well, and that's kind of where I was going with it. So you've wrapped it up in such a cute little bow. Thank you so much. Now, if people wanted to reach out to you, I'll have everything underneath in the
Mhm.
description section. But if people wanted to reach out to you, what is the best way for them to get a hold of you?
Because my name is so difficult to spell and has so many letters, the best way to find me is at Coach Deb Stell on all the platforms. So on Instagram, I'm
Right.
just Deb, DEBSTELL, at Coach Deb Stell. And I have that same handle on all the platforms. You can connect with me on all of them at Coach Deb Stell, but I'm most active on Instagram.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So, thank you everyone for joining us today. If you've liked this podcast, or even if you didn't, but you just want to be nice, click like and or subscribe and subscribe. Subscribe. I do bring content out usually at least once every 10 days, but most likely on a Friday. And I just love hearing from people as well. So if you have a suggestion for a topic that you'd like to see within real estate and finance, please reach out and DM me as well. Thank you, Deb. Have a great rest of the week.
Thank you.
And we will see you somewhere, I'm sure.
Soon. Okay.
Okay.
Bye. Thanks,
Take
Shelly.
care. Bye.